Pop, 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 pass the popcorn. 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 Pass the popcorn.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies one bad movie at a time. I'm your host, Carrie Jarasinski, and this is Pass the Popcorn, where you're joined by the coolest people we know to talk about movies, either so good or so bad that we can't wait to share them. Today is very exciting because not only am I joined by film critic Tim Brayton, the Huge.
Yo, yo, yo.
Yo, yo, yo.
Huge.
I don't think people say that anymore, but...
Good, because I would feel embarrassed if I said contemporary slang.
That's true, as you should. But I am also joined by Zev Burrows, who is a composer, a lyricist for stage and screen, and a longtime reader, listener, and I would just say friend of the AE community in general. I think a lot of us know him. So much fun having you on today, so welcome.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Tim, for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, glad to have you on board. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is sort of your thing that gets you into movies? What is your history?
Well, what gets me into movies? That's a really interesting question. For me, the longest time it's never been about genre. For me, as long as and I think part of this was thanks to you. Honestly, if it's good, I don't care what genre it is, I'll accept it into my heart. The only genre that I really have a hard time pinning down movies that I like is like the swords and sandals epics of the 50s, like Ben-Hur and Spartacus, that sort of era, and that sort of genre, which I always find a little, not to my taste, but to each their own. But if it's good or if it's extremely bad, I think. I just started diving into the films of Neil Breen, so, that's been a rabbit hole that I look forward to exploring a little more.
I have never been willing to make a dive into Neil Breen. Like every year or so, encountering one of his films feels like the speed I could handle, but doing the whole filmography just in a push feels like it would break my brain.
Oh, probably. I mean, I tried Twisted Pair the other night, like a month after doing Fateful Findings, and I just could not stay awake for whatever reason. So I don't know what that says about Mr. Breen or what I just eaten prior to that. But
Yeah, Carrie, Neil Breen. Since I'm sure you don't know who he is, he is I believe, Las Vegas-based real estate developer who decided to take his real estate millions and make movies because he thought that making movies would be fun.
Yeah.
So basically the Las Vegas version of Rob, essentially.
Oh, okay. That comparison makes it crystal clear for me. So I appreciate that.
But just like a strange figure who he seems to clearly love movies a ton, but he doesn't seem to have ever seen one or understand how they work.
Okay.
You know what I just learned recently is that he lives in the same city as Derek Savage, which is just like...
Is that Fred Savage's brother?
So Derek Savage is arguably worse than Neil Breen in a certain sense. He is the creator of Cool Cat and Cool Cat Saves the Kids, and most recently, Cool Cat Fights Coronavirus, which is a 21-minute short film that if you love bad cinema, this is like Scrooge McDuck diving into a pot of gold. So
that is awesome. I
have resisted the Cool Cats so far. Someday.
Do it for the memes. That's what I would say. Do it for the memes.
Right.
Speaking of, Zev, I am actually not interested in your taste in movies. I am interested in your favorite flavor of ice cream. So my question to you is to get to know you. People need to get to know you. Nothing about movies. That's always boring. But you know what isn't boring? Again, we have to decide whether or not we can really connect by what you would get if you went to Baskin Robbins. I know this is putting you on the
If I
spot.
went to Baskin Robbins,
You go anywhere. Where do
I
you
was
go
going to
for
say,
ice cream?
because if I were to go to Baskin Robbins, it would end our friendship, because I'd be like, Carrie, we live in Madison. Why aren't we going to Chocolate Shop?
I
Why are
was
we going to
trying to think
Baskin
of a
Robbins?
generally accepted ice cream place. But what
Okay.
if you get ice cream is the one flavor you go for?
I mean, I find chocolate chip cookie dough reliable.
Okay.
I'm
Reliable.
I'm also Trader Joe's has these like sublime ice cream chocolate chip cookie sandwiches that are very good.
I've had them. They're so good.
They're so good. They also have I think they have a good cookie dough flavor.
Okay.
But actually
simple.
recently my girlfriend turned me back onto Turkey Hill ice cream. So
Is that like a niche
Turkey Hill,
one?
so.
Okay.
I'm not familiar
Turkey.
with that.
All right.
No, I think it's based in somewhere in Pennsylvania,
Okay.
but I mean they have, they sell it in New York. They used to sell it. I'm pretty sure they still sell it in Baltimore where I grew up. But they make a good mint chocolate chip. So
All right. And then more importantly than that, when you hang the toilet paper in your bathroom, which direction do you hang it?
are you looking to get the FBI pounding on my door for some reason?
We're trying to uncover if you're a sociopath or if again, that you just blend right in. Because there is a right way to hang the toilet paper. So you either hang it where it dangles down over the roll, or you like pull it down from against the wall. And there is a right way.
I choose to pass this question.
That is what a hangs off the backside person would say.
That is, yeah, exactly, Tim. That's exactly what I was thinking. But
Although I feel like I've actually mentioned this on the air before. I regret to say that I have to hang mine off the backside, because if I hang mine off the front side, my cats assume that it is something they can play
a
with.
toy. I see.
And I lose like 20 feet of toilet paper at a time.
That's the worst too. So both of you guys can live in your sociopathy. And lastly, Zev, I will throw to you, if you could only watch one movie for the rest of your days, rest of your life, you have to only watch one. You could never watch any other movie, but just this one movie. Which movie would you pick?
That's a very good question, because I got to pick something that combines my love of sumptuous use of color, but also I don't want to ignore black and white. Am I a musical? It depends. So maybe I go to one of my top 4 on Letterboxd. Maybe if you were to ask me, well, in the spur of the moment right now, it could change. I'm going to go with the 1938 Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn.
That's a fantastic choice.
All right. I'm glad that Tim knows. That's good.
I mean, it's one of like 2 movies in history that just makes me feel so good every time I watch it. It is the most joyous. It is the second most joyous movie I can imagine.
Wait, what's the first? Now I got to know.
Singing in the Rain.
Oh, that one was a little dancey for me. I don't know. Which makes me a monster.
That's okay. My pick for the most joyous movie ever made would probably be My Neighbor Totoro. So you're still closer to being in Carrie's good graces than I am, Zev.
This is true.
Well, Carrie, have you seen the Errol Flynn Robin Hood?
Is that the cartoon?
No.
No.
It is a live action film starring a person named Errol Flynn.
I think the only Robin Hood that I've ever actually seen is the one with Kevin Costner.
Wait, so you have not seen the cartoon?
No.
That's wild.
But the interesting thing is, I might choose the Robin Hood version of with Kevin Costner for my movie that I would watch every day for the rest of my life. I never get sick of that one.
Well, because you see Kevin Costner's butt.
I think that's what it is. It's a good one back then. It was a really good one. Every part of that movie I really liked, which is, again, probably a problem. I don't think it's probably good, but I love that one. So good. So good. Well, indeed. Again, so happy to have you here. What's that?
Oh, I just said I'm going to keep my lips sealed on that one. And if you want more opinions, you can check out my lips.
You can't criticize me till we get to the worth mentioning segment. But before we get there, I'm excited to be here. I'm about 30 minutes. I don't know if you can tell. I'm about 30 minutes off of a horrendous stomach bug that I acquired yesterday. And I was like, right before this, I'm like, maybe I'm gonna push. Maybe I'm gonna push. Like I'm not feeling good. And then I was like, 30 minutes ago, I was like, go time. I'm ready to go. So if I blip off at some point, it's the mayo salad that I had.
Is that
yesterday.
the euphemism that your family uses?
Wait, what is it? Blip off?
Blipping off.
Is that a term?
I don't know. I'm asking. I assume that you're saying if you just haul off and vomit all over the camera while we're talking to you.
I see. I just actually made it up now. It's something new.
Okay.
I don't think anyone's ever heard of it. But
my partner was telling me that his family refers to their geriatric dog, who apparently routinely vomits, as spilling the mustard because it's this kind of like thin, watery yellow substance.
Thanks. You know what?
And
Honestly,
I took that
now.
opportunity to tell him I was never going to eat food again, so thank him for that.
Again, I really appreciate that. Like that's where I'm at right now is I'd love to hear more about illness, like more about it in the details.
Oh, I can make that happen. No worries.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds great.
Carrie, I think you might have ruined the fried rice that I'm going to be having tonight for dinner.
It's not good. It's not good. I rarely get sick, but I did find out the hard way what can make me that sick. And I'm also coming off of a 24-hour turnaround trip to Nebraska. We went out there for a funeral service. And in Nebraska, when you do have a funeral service, I found that all of the food that is served is mayonnaise-based. And so I was like really hungry.
Oh, so it's not a stomach bug, it's food poisoning.
It might be. It could be so many things. It's really hard to say. I think it might be food poisoning. Yeah, which isn't great either. So I'm recuperating. But I got to tell you.
Because you know what happens when you let mustard out under the hot Nebraska sun is it goes off.
Is that's what's happening? Yeah, there was some mustard, there was some mayo, lots of hard-boiled eggs, like lots of deviled eggs, lots of pasta with very limited vegetables in it, and just mostly like meat and mayo and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm gonna count on you guys to bring it today.
I will say, I recently got into not an argument per se, but as I'm sure Carrie you're familiar with the question of what constitutes the Midwest is a very vexed and complicated question that people have extremely strong opinions about when they live in the Midwest. And not that long ago, I saw Nebraska referred to very casually as being part of the Midwest. And in my mental map of the United States, it's not. I resist calling Nebraska part of the Midwest. That being said, the funerals are all accompanied by huge pasta salads full of meat and mayo. Is one of the most Midwestern things I have ever heard in my entire life. So I feel like I have to apologize to the people of the great state of Nebraska. You are indeed clearly Midwesterners.
So if I could probably add on to that. I should ask my girlfriend again what her friend who lives in I believe Wisconsin as well. She puts I think cottage cheese on her pasta, and when I heard that I almost had a panic attack.
Oh my gosh, I love cottage cheese on my pasta. Is you put spaghetti and you get a huge bowl of spaghetti, and then you put cottage cheese.
Are you doing a bit right now, Carrie?
No, wait, you don't do this too?
No.
I've done that for years.
Are you sure that you do it, or are you making it up right now?
I am 100%. I love cottage cheese on my pasta, like 100% on my spaghetti. I put like a huge glob of it on the side. It's so good. It makes it like you're almost eating a bowl of lasagna. It's so good. Don't you make your lasagna with cottage cheese?
Fucked up lasagna do you eat?
What? Every lasagna has cottage cheese in it. You do a layer a noodle, layer a sauce, layer a cottage cheese, and then just repeat a few times.
You do know that cottage cheese and ricotta cheese are two different products.
Yeah, I mean you can use both, but cottage cheese is the preferred dairy in a lasagna. I can't believe you haven't done this.
Are you doing a bit? Because I cannot tell.
I am 100%. Like, I eat cottage cheese every single day. I eat it on my pasta. I eat it with fruit.
I love cottage cheese. That's not what's at issue.
I put my pineapple on it.
Yeah, cottage cheese and fruit. A-okay. Love it.
Okay.
Or are you saying you put the cottage cheese and the pineapple on the spaghetti?
No, just the cottage cheese. I mean, I would probably, but I
It
haven't thought of it.
almost would make it feel better if you put the pineapple on the spaghetti as well.
I thought this was the norm.
I don't know why.
I think you guys are on the outskirts here. I think everybody listening right now is like, I load up that cottage cheese on my spaghetti every time. I think that's what they're saying. But
I mean, my go-to for pasta is probably pesto, but I think like my go-to for anything is pesto.
I would also have that with cottage cheese. I would also do that. So, yeah, now that I'm thinking back to it, I didn't think about the food poisoning, but now that you're saying that, that feels right. Because I walked in and I was like, I basically had a plate of pasta, cottage cheese, and deviled eggs. And now that you're saying that, I'm like, ooh, that's what's caused this. So, alas, I did make it back, though, and I am glad that we're here. But what have you guys been up to? Anything more exciting than 24-hour turnaround funeral? Do you guys have anything else?
I mean, not in my personal life. I've just been sort of, sitting here grinding away. But I did want to point out, Carrie, especially since you've been traveling, you've perhaps missed the exciting news. The Cannes Film Festival is currently running, and a certain motion picture that I believe you are very excited to see opened at the Cannes Film Festival. It's had its premiere. So we have had the first people in this world see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Oh, no. Don't even tell me. Okay, honestly, I'm actually not feeling very good. So, like, don't
do you
tell
want me to
it's
tell
bad.
you
No.
the number following the fresh or rotten tomato symbol on Rotten Tomatoes?
Will it make me happy? Or will it make me sad?
It'll make me happy.
Then no.
It'll make me happy too.
Because the number is currently 52%.
Oh, wait, for audience? Or like
there is no audience score yet.
Oh, okay.
Only critic score.
Oh, only critic score. Well, what do they know, honestly? I mean, I bet the audience is going to love it. So will I. It's going to be good. 52 is not that bad. I mean,
it's not that bad.
Give me one.
It'll go up. It hasn't had any of the blogger critics yet. It's only had
the
real
Grouches.
critics thus
They only
far.
have the Grouches.
It's lower than the Phantom Menace, so I wonder what that says. Because I think the Phantom Menace is still sitting at 57.
It's lower than Mario.
Ooh.
Oh, is it?
That doesn't feel good.
I believe Mario's at like 55 or something.
That does not feel good at all. What? Are there any like
audiences loved Mario? Mario's currently at 59. It is 7 points higher than Indiana Jones.
Mario was a giant pile of garbage. Here's my problem with Mario, and this is a rabbit hole, but here's my problem with Mario. That little cute star, the depressed star that was in Mario, that was like in the little cage.
Yeah, Lumily
could have just slipped right in and out of that cage, and she's just lingering in the cage. Like, what a plot hole. There were just plot holes left and right in that movie.
If that was your solitary problem with Mario, I'm confused how you could say that it is a pile of garbage.
It's just, it didn't like play on anything that I was expecting. Like, as a Mario aficionado, I didn't feel like it played on like any of my old beats with Mario. I don't know. I didn't connect with it. Zev, did you see it and like it?
I haven't seen it,
Okay.
so I'm very selective, for reasons mostly pertaining to income. I'm selective about what I choose to see in theaters. If I could, I would try to see everything, but so I chose. I think Mario came right around the time of. Did it come the same weekend as John Wick 4, or like the weekend after? Or
it was at least 1 week after John Wick 4.
Okay. So I think as everybody was going to see Mario, I went to go see the new Kelly Reichardt showing up. So,
and I think I just got it literally wrong. I think it showed up 1 week. I think John Wick opened and then Mario opened. I don't know. They did not open the same weekend.
Okay.
And the Kelly Reichardt has not yet arrived in Madison, so
okay.
I will probably never be able to see that film in the theater, which I'm bummed out about.
Well, you can skip John Wick 4 and Mario. Save your pennies. Save your pennies for both. But alas, so you said something else is going on, or what did you say, Tim? You had something going on professionally?
I have nothing going on whatsoever. I just wanted to make you feel bad about the Indiana Jones Rotten Tomatoes score.
Oh, that was it? Oh, gosh.
Yes. I do not live an interesting life these days.
I think you do. Before we jump into our worth mentioning, and again, I don't want this to go into a dark place, but I had a lot of contemplation on my 8-hour drive home from Nebraska yesterday. The funeral was a little weird that I went to. So my uncle passed away. The funeral was a little weird, and I'll tell you why it was weird. I think the age that I'm getting at
because he wasn't dead.
He woke up. No, he did not. He did not. He stayed there. But here's the thing. Like, I can't tell if our family has really weird, like, funeral rituals or if this is the norm. Because I think the age I'm getting to, I'm starting to look at what you actually do at funerals. And I'm like, this is weird and, like, really creepy. So I'll just explain to you. You walk up to the church and you're standing there, and then everybody started lingering outside. And then if you go in, they're there. The person is there, but, like, the box is open. Like, you can see the person, and people just go in and, like, look at them. They stand next to the person and look at them and, like, do kind of, I don't know, chat. I don't know what they do. Drop things in there. I don't know what happens, but do your families do that, or is that really weird?
That is every funeral I've ever been to where the deceased did not die in a violent accident has had an open casket.
With an open? Why do we do this? Why do we do this to ourselves?
I do. So I'm going to resolve your. Well, I don't want to take the story too far afield. I don't know why we do this. Is the short answer. But Zev, what is your take on Carrie's?
I have only been to one funeral in my life, and yeah, there was an open casket. Was it a violent death? It wasn't a violent death. It was a drunken motorcycle accident.
Oh.
But,
well, like to be clear, when I say that is the reason why there's not an open casket, no one wants to see the mangled parts of a corpse.
Oh no. That was not the person who was at the. I actually didn't go to the funeral. I went to the wake.
Right,
but,
and it sounds, Carrie, like the wake and the funeral might have been run one directly after the other.
No, they didn't do that. So I tried to get out of it. So I got in late enough that I missed the wake because I don't want to see anything. That's not my thing. I've got some things with that. I don't want to see it. So then went to the funeral the next day, and I was like, kind of bopped in, and then I was like, okay, when are we going to get started? And they're like, well, are you going to go in and visit? Are you going to go in and do the visit? And I was like, I thought that was yesterday. And they're like, well, no, they left it so that you can do it again today. You've got time. You got 30 minutes. And so I was like, now what do I do? And honestly, I'll tell you what I did, and I'm not proud of it. I pretended to go in, and then I did this thing. It's like what I do when I pass things on the road that I don't want to see on the side of the road. I did kind of like an eye blur. So I pretended that I was walking by, and I like squinted, and then I sort of like scratched my face. So I didn't actually see, but it appeared as though I breezed by because it was everyone was doing. But
so rather than seeming rude by not looking at the corpse, you wanted to seem rude by just kind of racing by like you were trying to get to a grocery store before it closed.
Yeah. That is exactly,
okay.
Now that you say it like that, that is exactly what I did. So I walked away and I was like, I got to find out. Maybe this is just our family and it's strange. I don't know. But I got to tell you.
That part is strange. Having both a wake and an open casket funeral feels odd to me.
It was too much for me. And honestly, I also realized I'm never going to a funeral again. I'm literally the last person you want there because I will make it awkward. Like, if you can imagine every awkward moment that I've ever created on this podcast applied to a funeral, that all happens. It's all the same. Like, it's things are said trying to like overcompensate because I don't like when people are crying. So I end up like being very weird. And I just decided I think I'm going to pass on these in the future. That's my plan.
But wouldn't it be funnier to go and watch a funeral than to watch somebody get married today? Tim, I hope you got that.
Yes, I do. Okay. Took me a minute to get there.
Wait, is it two weddings and a funeral? Is it a funeral, two weddings and a funeral, Joe?
No.
You got to explain because I don't know.
Well, I don't know if you're ever going to see this musical because I know you don't like musicals.
She will not ever see this musical.
She will never see Company. Okay.
She would bounce off of Company like a cannonball. I don't even know what that means. It wouldn't go well.
It wouldn't go well. So I should skip it. I'm going to pass.
It would not go well.
All right.
It is this incredibly wonderful patter song. Is it the first act finale? Do I have that right?
No, I think Marry. Well, I think it can be because I think sometimes "Marry Me a Little" is also used as Act 1 finale. But
okay.
I think it might. I'm trying to remember if it was Act 1 finale when I saw it like a year and a half ago on Broadway. It might have been. I think they put in "Marry Me a Little." I gotta make sure.
Okay.
I gotta check that.
But yeah, no, it's this very wonderful patter song about a bride who is terrified of getting married.
Oh,
today.
I see. Okay. Well, I will make sure to skip that. And while Zev is looking that up, speaking of what's that?
I wanted to talk a little bit about funerals, if I may. It sounds like you're about to change the subject. Because I had an interesting conversation with my partner yesterday. He was telling me about something he just learned about, and it's sort of what he wants to have done when he passes, which will almost certainly be after I do.
Oh,
so
sure,
I don't
for
even know why he was telling me this.
Yeah.
But there's apparently this new thing called water cremation. Have either of you heard of this?
No.
So it's sort of exactly what it sounds like. It is a very low energy usage way of sort of cremating yourself, not in that you are being cremated because you're not being set on fire, but trying to reduce what is left of your body to the lowest impact amount of material so you don't have to be buried in the ground in a vault and whatnot. And basically they put you in a non-reactive tub, your body, and they create a lye solution that they pour over your corpse, and you dissolve into just like fluids, like you break down into your constituent chemicals. And apparently, and this is the part where it becomes ecologically friendly, the way this is done, and then the substance they pour in, which he said is basically just citric acid, to neutralize the lye, what remains is a very nutritious substance for pouring onto plants. So you can basically, it's like you spread someone's ashes in the garden or whatnot. You could just pour them to water the plants in the garden they love.
So interesting. This is
so
his plan.
my thought. What was that, Carrie?
This is his plan now. This is what he wants.
This is what he wants, and I think this is I would still like to have my body dumped in a woods so I can be picked over by vultures, but I think that's a good plan too. But my thought was, if it's basically just water, and it sounds like it's basically just water, wouldn't it be neat if you took your remains and you boiled them and distilled them, and then, because you're pouring in citric acid to neutralize the lye, what if you instead poured in lemon juice and made yourself into lemonade, and that's what was served as the refreshment at your wake?
Oh.
It was lemonade made out of you.
You know what? That's kind of nice, because then you'd always have a piece of them with you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like those cultures that practiced ritual cannibalism as a way of like consuming the essence of the deceased into the entire community.
I'm loving this. I'm thinking about all the possibilities.
I'm getting a flashback.
What are you getting a flashback to?
I'm getting a flashback to when you guys talked about Midsommar and
I forgot about that, but yes, that as well. Like, what if you were reduced down to a liquid, you could like make it into a perfume. You could just get made into lots of things, and then you could always like be spritzing him on you, like before you go to a show, or like you said, just like
well, the other
usage.
thought he had was, when I said lemonade, he said, well, yeah, you could serve like Tom Collins, and then I thought, well, you could use some of yourself to form the lemonade, and then the rest of you could be distilled into a whiskey, so you can make a Tom Collins entirely sourced from yourself.
You know what?
I think it would be a very special thing to do.
I think it is too. I think we're going to do this. So is this your plan for yourself now too? So we can all have a Jack and
Well, no. Like I said, my intent is to be torn apart, my corpse torn apart by carrion eating animals.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Vultures and
vultures.
And whatnot.
I think that's fair as well. Rob and I did talk about this yesterday again, because he was originally wanting, we've talked about this before, to be buried at the base of a tree. So like you can get you can be made into the bulb of a tree. So as the tree grows, like it becomes like one with the tree. And he's like, isn't that beautiful? And then like you'd always have me in the backyard. And I remember years ago being like, I would never do that, because then I'd become obsessive about the tree, and like, what if the tree like dies and you have to like live through 2 deaths again, and there's all this stuff. And so that came up again yesterday, and he's like, remember you didn't want to do that because the tree was going to make you sad? And I was like, you know what? I think I'm fine with it now. Yep. I think I'm good. Over the last few years, I've evolved. I'm going to be okay if you plant yourself into a tree. So that's still his plan.
I do believe it's illegal to plant a dead body in your own yard.
No, I mean like you form yourself into the bag of the roots of the tree, and then like your ashes are in the bag, and then the idea is that you're growing.
So you're not just putting a corpse underneath a tree. Oh, because that would certainly be good for the tree.
Yes, yes.
Give it a lot of material it could draw nutrition from.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna get a nice crab apple, and just lock him right there into that bag and let him sprout. So that's his new plan. So. Zev, we'll leave you time to think about this. You're much too young to be considering this like Tim and I. But alas, the one thing that I have considered this week, Zev, is the movie that you picked as a Patreon request, Laura from 1944.
That is a brutal fucking segue. I call foul on that segue.
What? That was the best I've ever had. That was the best I've ever done. So it's not going to get better than that. So you just take it. But we're going to head into our worth mentioning segment. I'm going to bring that. I won't go first. But that's the one I'm bringing today to talk about, which I caught on the way home yesterday from this service I was mentioning prior to falling ill. So I'm excited to talk about it. So I'm bringing Laura. Tim, what are you going to be bringing today?
So I actually have a couple movies I want to talk about. One just briefly, one hardly at all. So 3 movies, one that I'm just going to basically say the title, one I want to talk about quickly. But then I do have a movie that I've been asked to bring to the table from one of our Patreons, Christophe Romain, and that is Survive Style 5+ from 2004. I'm also going to want to spend just a moment talking about a movie that's been out in theaters for a few weeks now, but I only had a chance to finally catch up with it this week, Evil Dead Rise. And then I'm not even going to talk about my last movie because I've reviewed it, or rather, by the time this episode goes live, I will have reviewed it. So you should go out and check out the review on our site. But I know, Carrie, that you don't read reviews on our site, but I really wanted to tell you personally, I think you would really like this movie called Local Hero from 1983. It is sort of the first in the guy goes to a small rural town in Britain and is unbelievably charmed by how kind and sweet it is. It's like the originating point of that genre of movie. And I just thought it was tremendous. And I think you specifically would love it. And I just wanted to say that. So Local Hero, 1983.
Local Hero. And what was the impetus for watching it?
That was also a Patreon.
Oh, okay.
request.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited now. And you know what? In addition to be excited, I am going to read your review, and then I'll really know if I'm going to like it.
Sounds good.
All right. And then Zev, what are you going to be bringing?
I have 2 movies. One of which I'm going to talk about very briefly because I watched it way back in 2020. And it ties in with the release of the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. So on Friday, Disney Plus announced that they were going to be removing a whole bunch of content, and one of the titles that they were proposing to remove was a documentary called Howard about the wonderful, wonderful lyricist and book writer Howard Ashman, who practically saved Disney animation. Like, I don't think Disney animation would have continued past 1989 if it were not for Howard Ashman. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of, as we know from Don Hahn's other documentary, Waking Sleeping Beauty, there were a whole number of other players, Peter Schneider, Michael Eisner, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who played a very important role in revitalizing Disney animation. But Howard Ashman was their real artistic beacon, wrote the lyrics for 1.5 songs of Oliver and Company, I believe, and then the entirety of Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and had done a whole treatment of Aladdin. And 3 of his songs remain in the movie. And the documentary sort of goes into his life and sort of how he, fundamentally changed Disney through his intense knowledge of musical theater. Like, he knew every single musical theater trick in the book. Had he lived, I think a lot of people say that he would have been the great musical theater book writer of our time. And his lyric writing skills, to me, had he done more, I think it would have been acceptable to put him in the same sentence as Stephen Sondheim. As it is, I think it might still be acceptable to do that. I don't think we've seen a lyric genius quite like him. I don't think.
Yeah, I want to sort of add on to that appreciation of Howard Ashman. Like, Beauty and it's not just that he wrote the book and lyrics for Beauty and the Beast. Like that was his movie as much as it was any other individual person's. Like he was guiding story choices at a fairly deep level. I think he may or may not have become one of the great musical theater writers, because I think he also would have possibly become the next Walt Disney. Like I think if he had lived, he really loved working with that studio. He was becoming a very powerful voice in that studio, and I think he would have guided it in a way they never really had a guide. Like they kind of had Peter Schneider, and that was the closest they had. But like I think he would have really been a huge part of that process.
Right, and again, you don't get Little Mermaid without him. You don't get Beauty. You don't get any of the films of the Disney Renaissance, essentially,
For
without
sure.
Howard.
You don't get Disney films as Broadway style musicals. He's the one who came up with that.
So what was the thing? I know I missed it, but so why were they trying to pull him off, or what were they doing?
So Disney Plus had essentially on Friday they announced that they were going to remove a bunch of content, and the documentary on Howard, which is a Disney Plus exclusive, said that they were going to remove, and there was rightly so, there was an uproar. Like, I was like, do these people who are making these decisions, do they not understand who this man was?
Yeah.
And why his work is just so integral to the company? And probably, I don't know that, even their film division would have continued. Maybe their live action division at the time would have continued, because that was doing big business with movies like Splash and Good Morning Vietnam. I know that, but animation certainly wouldn't have survived had Howard Ashman and Alan Menken not stepped into the picture.
And so what was Disney Plus's impetus, though, for pulling it off, or what was their rationale for it?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know that a lot of people have been watching it. I think that since they are propping up this Mermaid movie, this new remake of Mermaid, it would make perfect sense to say, hey, we have this wonderful documentary on this wonderful man. And for some reason, I didn't hear enough discourse. The first discourse I heard about it was that they were removing it. And I was just like, that is the biggest insult to this man's memory that I can think of. So there was a big uproar in our AE Discord about it. And I think the internet basically bullied Disney into reversing that decision. And I'm grateful for that. So I saw it a couple of years ago. It's a very charming piece. I don't think it is it's not as groundbreaking in the type of work that Don Hahn's first documentary, Waking, Sleeping, Beauty, is, but it is a very nice tribute, I think, to Howard, and perfect for this weekend if you want to see the Mermaid movie.
All right, I'm going to check that out. That sounds good.
And I do want to just jump in a little bit. Obviously, we're all just kind of speculating in the dark in terms of why do the streaming services make the choices they make. But it's what Disney did, and there's a ton of movies they were pulling, not just Howard, and I assume they're still pulling all of those. But the best logic I've heard anyone has come up with is that, the economics of streaming are very opaque. Like they make very little sense in a lot of ways. And so the task, the thing that has to be weighed when they're making these decisions, how many eyeballs view this stream? Is that enough people that we think would otherwise quit our service? Because that's really what streaming makes its money on, is people not quitting. Is this keeping enough people watching it over and over again that we would lose those people if we got rid of this, versus how much do we have to pay the people who made it in residuals every time it gets streamed? And that, I think, is the logic for why something like Willow did not come, because they canceled this fairly new, I think it only finished airing like 5 months ago, miniseries based on the film Willow. That, I think, got canceled because they just weren't seeing the number of streams they needed to justify the amount of money they were paying to the cast. For residuals. The idea that could be the justification for taking off a documentary, and there were several documentaries as part of this call, not just Howard. That is bizarre, to assume that a documentary could have that kind of economic, like, documentary should be one of the cheapest forms of content to keep on your streaming service. So it's very weird to me, but again, streaming is a black box. No one really knows how they're even trying to make money off of it.
Well, I'm glad the internet won. Finally, the internet is used for good, and I'm glad that they brought it back. So that sounds worth checking out. And Zev, you said you had another one that you wanted to bring, that you wanted to talk about?
I do, and it's going to be right up your alley, Carrie, because it is a black and white, very stripped down Japanese drama from 1942.
Oh, I've seen it.
I'm sure that's right.
I've seen it. Yes, you're right. It's so good.
So Tim, I'm sure you've encountered this on Letterboxd, the Criterion Challenge.
I have. I'm familiar with the concept of the Criterion Challenge.
So this is my second year doing it. It's been a lot of fun. I was on, so essentially, Carrie, the Criterion Challenge is exactly what it sounds like. Especially for people who own subscriptions to the Criterion Channel, one category for every week. There's a different category, and it's just watch movies that Criterion either sells physically or has up on their streaming service. And this week, my category was, I mean, you could do these in any order, but the category I was on was number 20, Tearjerkers.
Oh.
So like, and of course, being the cop-out person I am, I went with a film by the great Ozu Yasujiro, who is probably the easiest director to split your heart into a million pieces. But
I think that is a very fair estimate of Ozu's thing. Yes.
Yeah. So I went with a movie of his that I had the DVD for a long time, but I actually hadn't gotten around to watching it. I went with a movie called There Was a Father from 1942, and it's sort of a companion piece to his 1936 movie The Only Son, and a lot of it. I mean, Ozu. I think if there's any sort of criticism of Ozu that I've ever really come across, and I want to meet those people who have criticisms of Ozu because I want to know just how dark their soul or lack thereof is. So I mean, they probably would say that Ozu just kind of makes the same movie again and again, which is fair to a certain point. But again, I just find his movies generally so very nutritious, and I think There Was a Father was a movie that, because I hadn't watched one of his movies for a long time, and I just kind of needed to put this on, and it just, so it was about a widowed father who is very poor, and he, after an accident in, he was a school teacher, spoilers, so after a tragic accident, he gives up his life of teaching and has to turn to another job, and put his son through education. And sort of like the entire movie is just this relationship between father and son that kind of gets, you can see it sort of in another scenario, it would probably disintegrate, but they managed to keep it going. Mm-hmm. And it's very sweet. It's very beautiful. Yes, it did get me choked up because Ozu was magnificent at doing that. The role of the father, Ozu turned to the actor who also played the grandfather in Tokyo Story. Mm-hmm. And I wrote this on Letterboxd, he had a smile that was very, very super encouraging and at the same time somehow knowingly ill-fated. So I think Setsuko Hara, who was another actress in Tokyo Story, had a very similar kind of smile. And, so.
I am looking at his smile right now, and I completely agree with that assessment. I'm like, I feel drawn to you, like I want to talk to you, but you're also going to you might judge me. Like, I think you're going to give me some advice and be like, hey, stay away from those deviled eggs next time. I think he's a man with thoughts, I can tell. Tim, are you a big fan of these movies?
I haven't seen this one in particular, but I am in general an extremely big fan of Ozu. I actually own the same DVD 2-pack that Zev mentions, and The Only Son is just a masterpiece. I saw it for the first time maybe 3 or 4 years ago, mm-hmm. and words fail, which is ironic because it's Ozu's first talkie, and part of what makes it so good is the very delicate way he's using sound. But no, I think he's one of the best filmmakers ever. Like my favorite sound film of all time is a Yasujiro Ozu film. It's Tokyo Story. So
I know. I remembered that you'd like that. Is that one that would sit with me? Would I be able to take that?
I would not want to find out that you didn't feel feelings at Tokyo Story, so I would almost prefer that you not see it.
Prefer not. Okay. I'll quietly watch
mean-
it. Okay.
I mean, Tokyo Story was my first Ozu, but I don't know that I would want it to be people's first Ozu. I think Only Son or maybe Floating Weeds, the remake. What do you think for people's first Ozu, Tim?
I mean, I think Tokyo Story is so many people's first Ozu that it just is kind of the default pick. I can certainly see the logic in wanting to not start with that or Late Spring, because then where are you going to go but down? But I think Only Son would definitely be a good first Ozu for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, add it to the list. Add it to the watch list. Tim, I'm going to pass it to you next because I got to close with myself because mine is going to be the most exciting movie of this episode. So I'm gonna save mine for last because I got a lot of feelings on it. But I'm going to throw it to you. You said you have a few you want to cover. What do you?
I have a couple. I already talked about Local Hero, basically just to say its name, and I'll say it one more time. Local Hero.
I already wrote it down.
But I did want to talk a minute, not very long, about Evil Dead Rise. It did come out about a month ago. Now is on streaming, VOD, which is increasingly the only way I'm actually able to watch movies because the bus system in Madison has decided that getting to theaters is not worth its time, basically. So it's a real chore for me to get to the theater. But I did see Evil Dead Rise finally. And I just wanted to talk about it briefly because I know that the alternate ending crowd is certainly more pro horror than I think a lot of podcast audiences might be. And so I think there'd be interest around it. And I have reviewed this film at this point, so I'm not going to go into too much detail for that reason. But basically, we have here the fifth film in the Evil Dead series, although to what degree this is an ongoing series is kind of difficult to say. There's the original trilogy of The Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness. Then in 2013 was Evil Dead, Nova. And now 10 years later, we have Evil Dead Rise, which was written and directed by Lee Cronin, an Irish filmmaker, whose only previous feature is called The Hole in the Ground, I think. And it is frankly not very good. I was not excited about that. I saw his name attached to Evil Dead. I was not excited about it for that reason. But having now seen the film, it's pretty solid. Like, it's not going to, I think, change anyone's life. But it does the thing Evil Dead movies do, which is to basically put a bunch of people, in this case, two estranged sisters and the elder sister's three children, two of whom are teenagers, one of whom is just a preteen. They're all basically trapped in an apartment. The teen son of the elder sister finds this ancient evil book, the Naturam di Monto, inadvertently uses it to release evil creatures, like just a sort of spirit of evil that inhabits the mother. And this is what Evil Dead movies do. The book gets opened, the book gets read, an evil force enters one person, and then the evil force tries to spread itself. It's kind of like zombies. It's not exactly zombies. But in this case, as in most of the Evil Dead movies, the thing that the creatures do is they sort of taunt the people they have not inhabited yet with this kind of mean-spirited, just, I'm inhabiting your loved one, I'm making them do things that are horrifying and gross. And in this case, that gets an extra charge because it's a mother tormenting her sons, but the mother's not there anymore. She's been replaced with a sort of evil presence. So it's a pretty nasty-minded movie, which I liked. That was kind of the thing I was a little worried about, but it has a sense of the morbid humor that tends to accrue to the Evil Dead films. And just, it has good bones. Like, it has a good approach to this scenario. It has really good makeup and gore effects. So, like, I think if you're a horror fan, especially if you're an Evil Dead fan, this is a no-brainer to see it. It works. I think it's substantially better than the 2013 film, frankly. The big problem with it is, well, there's two. One is that the entire cast is from either New Zealand or Australia. They're all playing Americans, and none of them are handling the accent well, so it's really super distracting. Mm-hmm. The other problem is that it has just not really been lit. Like, it is a super, super dark movie to look at. Dark enough that it can be very difficult to see what's going on at times.
Okay.
Which is never a great feeling. So definitely liked it with a big asterisk next to that, but I did like it.
Okay.
So I just wanted to sort of put that out in the world because I think that this is when I was very curious about my own response.
I have a question about this one because this has
Yes.
been our watch list. It's a little bit of marital contention that's starting about this one right now because like a month ago when it came out, Rob was like, tonight's the night. Are we going to watch this? He loves the Evil Dead series. So like immediately when it came out, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's watch it. And then we like hopped into bed, and then like 7 minutes later, I was asleep. So like I didn't even make it. He was like brushing his teeth, and then I was asleep when he got back. And then another night we were going to do it, and I was just like, I don't know. We just haven't watched it. It's been on delay for a long time, and now it's like it's a point of frustration. But my question to you is, I mean, I do like a good scary movie, but I watch scary movies in different locations in my house based on how scary it is. So in Tears, if it's the most scary movie, I watch it in my bed because then I'm under the covers and my feet aren't on the ground. Like my feet are off the ground so nothing can get me. So that's like the most possible scary. Medium scary is living room, like on the couch, because then I have exits. Like I can like get out the door if I need to, or like take cover if I need to. And then third is sort of scary light, which is I'll go to the basement and watch it. But it can't be too scary if I'm in the basement because I'm just going to get murdered. There's a potential that I'm going to get murdered there. So where should I watch Evil Dead if I'm going to watch it somewhere?
I want to first off congratulate you on what is a very logical taxonomy. I've been in your house, and I would also say if I were concerned that the monsters were going to get me, I would not want to be trapped in your basement.
No.
That is a very trappable basement.
Yeah, the labyrinth down there. I'm already scared without a movie being. I'm actually in here right now, and I'm actually scared being in the basement.
I have often been the first person to go into your basement, into the recording booth when we in the before times when we were still recording together.
Yeah,
I never liked being the first one to go into the recording booth.
No, there's a 100% chance. Well, it's not 100% because I'm still alive.
It's clearly not 100%, but it is.
But like,
it is a non-zero chance.
It's a non-zero chance that somebody is behind that door with a machete and that they're going to murder me. And like, I would never. It's when I like chastise my kids a little bit, like go to the basement and do whatever, and they're like, no, we don't want to. But secretly, I also don't want to be down here, and I never would come down here with the lights off. So like the cruelest joke we can do in our house is like not everybody's up the stairs and you're like boop and you turn the lights off. I mean, like worst thing you could do to a person.
You have a dark ass basement.
Yeah.
That is a mean joke.
It's dark, it's scary, there's doors everywhere. Yeah.
So when you watch The Witch next time, where are you going to watch The Witch?
I will watch that from my cold dead grave. No, just kidding.
I was going to say, you will watch The Witch in Hell is when you will watch The Witch
I think
next.
I try to remember where I did watch the first part of that before I turned it off. I think I was in the basement, but that one was so dark. I was just like, what's happening? I only made it like 30 minutes into that movie. I think when the baby got eaten, I turned it off. I couldn't.
And I will say the argument for watching Evil Dead Rise in your basement is that it is so freaking dark.
Dark. Okay.
That the darkest space you can watch it in. That being said, based on your scariness threshold, I would say that it feels like a pretty clear-cut living room.
Room watch. Okay. I'm going to try and spice things up in our marriage today and watch that movie. I'm going to be like, hey, Rob, is it an Evil Dead kind of night? And then we'll see what happens. So.
If you really want to spice up your marriage, I'll point out that the film's title is Evil Dead Rise, and you can make a pun about that.
I'm gonna wordsmith that later. Actually, I
won't get there. I'm thinking something like
Evil Dead Rise.
Like you sort of brush your hand against Rob's thigh, and it's like I thought we could make something rise tonight. And then he gets excited, and you're like, the Evil Dead.
Could you even imagine me saying that? If I was going to make...
I earnestly cannot. My brain shatters like a fucking broken pane of glass trying to think of you saying that.
I think what I could pull off, though, is I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be like, hey, Rob, do you want to watch The Evil Dead tonight? Rise? And then I'll wink and hope that he like gets the innuendo. I think that's what I'm going to go for. I think he'll get it.
Sounds good.
I think he'll get it. I'm excited. I actually do want to see it. And I haven't seen all the Evil Deads, but I have seen, I think, one or two of them. And I remember being shocked that I just actually really liked them. Like, I think I saw some of the earlier ones and I was into them. I liked it. So
I would say tonally, I don't know which ones you've seen, this is probably most like the 1981 film compared to any of the others.
Okay. All right.
in terms of the exact mix of gross versus scary versus funny.
All righty. Well, we'll check in with that. Tim, did you have another one, or was that the last one you were going to cover?
No, I did, because I have one that was a Patreon request, thanks to Christoph, which brings us back to Japan, where we just were for the Ozer film, but many, many years later in an entirely different context. This is the film Survive Style 5+. The title is written in English in the original, so that is its title. It's not even a translation. This is a film directed by Sekiguchi Gen, who was not terribly prolific. He only had a handful of movies to his name. Written by Tada Taku. And it is a very complicated film to talk about, insofar as I don't really know what the plot is. The 5+ is in reference to there are 5 different things happening. And basically, and I think the order they're introduced, but I might even have this wrong. We see a man burying his wife's corpse in the woods. And then his wife wakes up while she's being buried and attacks him. So he pounds her in the face with a shovel and finishes burying her, and then returns to their home, and she's there waiting for him and attacks him again. So plot thread 1, a man who keeps trying to murder his wife, but she keeps coming back from the dead to attack him. Okay. I'm not going to remember the order. I'm just going to give you the other plots. So then there is a plot about a woman who is an advertising executive who keeps having these visions of what would be the perfect new ad campaign for various products. And we see all of the ad campaigns in her mind, and they're all of these like horribly off-putting, strange, absurdist things. So this movie's from 2004, which is right around the time that like those weird Geico ads started, the ones that we're still with us, where it's just like, we're not going to sell you a product. We're just going to sell you some sort of bizarre little surrealist sketch for 30 seconds. And they feel like that, but in a sort of more actively off-putting register. And she has these visions. She loves them. She giggles at her own ideas. She then brings them to clients, and the clients are all horrified by the just weird antisocial things she has tried to use to sell their product. So that's our second element. Our third element is that there is a British assassin played by Vinnie Jones, who is flying to Japan for reasons presently unknown, who has this Japanese translator, and he keeps going from place to place, the assassin, asking his targets, what is your function in life? And based on how they respond, he's sort of an Anton Chigurh figure, where he will perhaps not kill them if their answer to that question is satisfactory, but what makes for a satisfactory answer to that question is very strange and not at all sort of what you would expect based on how the question's framed. So that's plot point 3. Plot point 4 starts because the assassin has been hired to kill the host of a very strange like talk show / game show / magic show, where he hypnotizes audience members. And he has called up one particular family to hypnotize the father to believe that he's a chicken. And it's all very funny, and the father's like walking around like a bird. And then the assassin shows up and kills the hypnotist. But the hypnotist has not yet taken the father out of hypnosis, so the father still thinks he's a bird, and now there's nothing the family can do about it. So they just take him back home and now try to cope with, well, dad thinks he's a chicken now. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to go around our life assuming that was the case. That's 4. 5 is 3 young men who enjoy breaking into people's houses and taking stuff, sort of just kind of pinging around Japan, having bantery conversations. 5 doesn't connect with the other 4. The other 4 all sort of like bleed into each other in weird ways. Like the ad executive, we meet her having just had sex with the hypnotist who's going to get killed after he turns the father into a bird. So like they do sort of connect with each other. The three thieves don't really, and I think that is possibly the single biggest frustration with this movie is that I can sort of see what a Survive style 4+ would look like, but the 5 is just one chunk of stuff too many. But anyway, so that's our content, right? Are these 5 very like weird little anecdotes that get sort of stretched across 5 hours, and they all go back and forth and they intertwine with each other. And it's very much like, what if Wes Anderson directed a Guy Ritchie movie that used the script from like Babel?
So that's good for you,
like,
right? So this means does this mean that you loved it?
I loved it.
Oh.
I had no idea what to do with most of it, but it is extraordinarily bright looking. It's so much color. The jokes, I think, are actually work. It's a comedy. I probably didn't clarify that.
No.
It's designed to be funny. Like, all of this is super ridiculous and weird. And I thought the funniness landed for me, which is not always going to happen with Japanese comedy. I have had some very negative experiences with Japanese comedy. But in this case, just the strangeness of it worked, and the strangeness mixed in with this like weird, brightly colored, everything is candy looking aesthetic. There's some really phenomenal jokes where the more time that the translator spends with the British assassin, the more that he doesn't just like translate the words the assassin is saying, he starts like mimicking his gestures. So he like very intently watches as the assassin like whips out a gun and like screams threats, and then turns and like holds his fingers as a gun basically to scream the same threats at the person he's talking to. And it's this great example of like a film that is super weird, and like that's what it's doing. It's just like, do you like weird? Well, here's weird. That never stops feeling weird. Like, it keeps escalating and escalating and escalating until like the last 3 minutes are the weirdest thing that happens in the entire film. And I felt very satisfied by it. It's 2 hours long, and I really was on board with the whole 2 hours. Like, I didn't feel like it lagged. I didn't feel like it was soggy. I just wish that it didn't have the three teenagers, because that is a plot line that just doesn't go anywhere for me.
And are the stories connected in any way? Like, is there a through line, or is it they're all independent stories?
They all occupy the same space, basically. Like, again, the advertising executive is sort of connected with the dad who's a bird, and the guy who's trying to kill his wife eventually hires the British hitman because, like, maybe if I have a professional killer do this, she'll finally stay dead. So they sort of overlap with each other, but they're really 5 different stories in 5 different genres even. But they do at the very, very end, like in the last minute, sort of all come back together. But I would hesitate to say how, because that's a spoiler. I will say this. You, Carrie, would hate this movie like you have never hated a movie in your entire life.
No, I feel that. Like, even as you're actually talking about it, I was like, ooh, this sounds no good.
You've seen House, correct?
Yes.
House.
Remember how you feel about House?
I remember I did have a sugar-coated substance that made that a little bit better for me, but actually, if anything, more horrified. Like, I think it amplified the horror of that movie that I felt.
Imagine a version of House that doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay. It's just like a why. Like, movies like that to me are
just
like,
for the pleasure
why?
of absurdity.
I guess.
It's fun.
All right. Zev, have you seen this?
I had a great time, so thank you, Christoph. And yeah, Zev, have you heard of this movie? Because I had not even heard of this movie until
I don't think I had heard of it. I just put it on my watch list, so I'll definitely hunt it for it. I actually just bought a House T-shirt, and it's one of my favorite shirts that I own. So
it's a great movie, and it would make a great shirt.
It's such a good movie.
To each their own. But yes, thank you, Christoph, for that movie that Tim and only Tim will ever love. But I'm going to pass it to
don't say that.
And maybe Zev, possibly Zev. He might lie and say he likes it and get a T-shirt, but we'll know the truth. But on that note, speaking of Patreon movies, Zev, one of the main reasons we had you here today too. I'm so excited to talk about my movie. So I caught, based on Zev's request, 1944's Laura. This has been on my list of things I needed to watch for a long time. I don't know. I was feeling like, what's this going to be about? Am I going to like this? What's this going to be? And so I had read a little bit of this about a synopsis, and then it piqued my interest a little bit. Like, the synopsis is very basic. It's like, a detective falls for a dead woman or something like that. I was like, well, now I'm like a little bit piqued. I'm a little bit interested. So anyway, a little bit of backdrop on this too. I'm watching this movie on the way home in the car on our computer with my mom in the back seat.
So you were really trying to give it the best possible chance.
You know, those are honestly some of my best experiences because, and I'll say, my experiences can be either like improved or degraded with the people that I'm with. And I will say that my mom is both the best and worst person in the world to watch a movie with because she brings so much life to it. She gets so into it. Like, she gets really like, oh, like startled really easily, and then she's like, oh, like I think I know what's going to happen. I think it's this, I think it's that. Like, she likes to, and she talks through movies, which is a problem for me, but because I love my mom so much, I'm like, yeah, Mom, maybe it is the detective, yeah, maybe it is the maid, you know, like I'm trying to react to her, but she gets so into it that it like makes the experience better. So at the end of the day, this was the best case scenario of watching this movie. So we watched it together. Let me tell you, everybody, a little bit of backstory, because all of you, after I describe this movie, are going to add this to your watch list. I'm 100% sure of it. So it's so much more than that. So it's old. It's black and white. It's 1994. Or wait, 1944. It's a little older than that. It is a film noir. You guys can jump in on me if I say any of this wrong. It's like a film noir, crime detective, comedy, murdery sort of like mashup thing that's happening. Is that fair?
Comedy is writing a check the movie can't cash, but other than that, I'm so far with you.
I think that Waldo Lydecker, played by Clifton Webb, is one of the funniest characters that I've ever seen in cinema.
I agree with that.
Oh my gosh.
I very much agree with that. It's a funny movie that is not a comedy, is how I would maybe characterize it.
It's funny. We laughed multiple times. My mom has like a cackle laugh too. She's cackle laughing. I'm like, bring it down. I can't hear. So we had to put the subtitles on. It was a whole thing because I was like, I need to hear everything. So anyway, let me tell you what happens. So right out of the gate, you find out that this woman has been murdered. You don't see her body. You just know that she's been murdered. And all that we know of her really is that she's this sort of, what do you call it? Magnet, like human magnet. Women, men, everybody that's around her is just like drawn to her.
I mean, it wouldn't be accurate to call her a socialite, but what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that. Socialite.
So. Okay, so she's a socialite.
She likes to be seen with wealthy people. She likes the good life.
She likes the good life. Agreed. But she deserves the good life. She's one of, I mean, I was drawn to her. I was like, I'm like a little bit sad. Like I had this really weird moment where I realized that I'm sad that I live when I live now because I wouldn't know her. She's passed away. So I was like, oh gosh, I wish I could have lived in a time where she existed in life so that I could have like seen her or met her or known her. I was very drawn to her. Her name, no spoiler, is Laura. So this is the person that we find out. All that we know of her is this like amazing photo of her, this like painting of her that's over the fireplace when you walk into the house where she's been murdered. And she is a stunner. Like, to be sure, she is a stunner. So that starts it off. We know that she's dead, and then it turns into sort of a cop thing. So they bring in a detective played by Dana Andrews. I'll go down a rabbit hole there in a second. Mark McPherson. What a name. Mark McPherson. He comes in and he's trying to investigate her murder. Along the way, he's meeting all of the potential suspects. And now you, as a audience member, are trying to figure out like what could possibly be the motive. Why would anybody want to do this to her? But then as it unravels, you start to find out that all of them do have a unique potential motive. So you're trying to like figure out who it could be. And I don't want to spoil anything about this movie because it is a little bit twisty. One of the twists comes early on, so I'm tempted to share that, but I'm still not going to. But you find out pretty early on something that changes the trajectory of the story. But alas, it becomes this Mark McPherson trying to figure it out. In the meantime, this is the other part where it gets a little steamy. He can't help himself but fall in love as well with Laura because he's hearing about her.
What he learns about her in the painting.
And so he is falling for her too. The cast in this is one that I'm just like, Oh my gosh. I didn't even know who these people were. So I said to my mom's like, I think I recognize that person. So Laura Hunt is played by Jean Tierney. Look her up. You're going to be like sweating.
I want to interject something real
Yes.
quick to your sort of point about what a just captivating life force she is. One of my little school chums back in kindergarten was named Tierney because her favorite movie of all time was Laura.
Wait, your mom's favorite movie of all time?
Well, no, my little school friend's mother's favorite movie was Laura. So my little school friend's name was Tierney in honor of Jean Tierney.
Oh, I love that. And what a cute, had I known, I would have done the same thing. Like Alice, I would have gone with Tierney. I think
Not too late.
It's not too late. I could change her name at any time.
She'll relearn it.
Only second to her is Dana Andrews. So like he pops in there and I'm like, wow. Like Dana Andrews is like somebody I've never seen before. My mom sees him and we had like the best moment because she was like, Dana Andrews. She was like, that was your grandma's celebrity crush. I was like, what? She's like, she watched every single thing that Dana Andrews was in, like would delete, like the equivalent of my like Matt Damon. She's like, yeah, she would go to any movie that he was in. And then she would always come out being like, whoo, like all excited to have seen him. Totally makes sense. He is just so cute and adorable, but also a man on a mission. So he's got like that working for him too. He's like very career focused. He was awesome. Then let me just double down on this even more. You're going to be so proud of me, Tim. I'm like looking at one of the guys in here. So one of the suspects, Shelby Carpenter, I'm taking a look at him and I'm like, I know this guy. Like, who is this guy? Yes. There's something about him. And it was in his voice, of course. And I was like, Mom, I know who this is. And she's like, I don't know. He doesn't really like look familiar. And I'm like, I think that's Vincent Price. And she was like, what? And we looked it up and I was like, it is a young Vincent Price.
I don't want to like do anything to diminish your enthusiasm. I will say I'm amazed to have discovered that you are more into a classic movie than I am in one specific way, which is that I think Dana Andrews, whatever. But young Vincent Price could get it, as the kids say.
Zev, where do you stand on that? Would you, Dana or Vincent, who takes the prize?
Who takes the prize? Probably, here's the thing that I noticed about Dana Andrews, because I watched another movie of his on Criterion Channel last year. He needs a strong ensemble. Like, he's not a great leading personality. He needs that, even though, he leads Laura perfectly fine. He needs a strong ensemble backing him up.
Okay.
I think Laura gives him that opportunity to have like all of these colorful players surrounding him. And so no question, it's got to be Vincent Price. No question.
All right. Well, I would take Dana Andrews any day. I would still take Vincent Price, but Dana Andrews at the top. And then at the even top of that is Clifton Webb, who plays
obvious
Waldo.
Best in Show in this movie. I don't know how you could possibly come to a different conclusion.
He is the most magical thing. I've never heard of him. I didn't even know his name before this. He is the most magical thing that I've ever seen in cinema. He was like the most perfect. He plays this character, for those who haven't seen it, of this really wealthy writer. So he writes. He's like he has a column in the paper that's really widely read and seen. So he has all this influence and power because, he can write something good about you, and if you write something bad about you, it can change the trajectory of your life. So Lucy, oh my gosh, my dog is Lucy, and she just licked my foot. So Laura, I'm so excited about this movie, I'm flustered. Laura tags in with him because of like what you guys said. She's like following the fame, following the mystique. She wants that socialite lifestyle, and so she ends up sort of becoming his like non-romantic companion, and it creates a really interesting dynamic because she's essentially using him for his clout, and like he is totally head over heels for her, even though like he seems
though he's gay as all fuck.
I was gonna say that, but I didn't know if that was gonna be rude. He
is the gayest man in 1940s American cinema.
But is he intended to be in this movie?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, okay. Because I felt that vibe, and then I was like, maybe I'm off.
This is a movie. I can say this. This is a movie about a bitchy queen who's like trying to control his fag hag. That's what this movie is.
Yeah, that's what it felt like, and I didn't know if my read was wrong. And I loved it.
It's so great.
It's so great. It's so good. So, Unexpected Delight. It's like a whodunit, which I love. all of it is good. I'm going to double down on a couple other things that I want to mention. And then Zev, I do want to throw it to you because this was your choice, because I kind of want to hear your perspective on why you chose it and what you love or maybe don't love about it. But there was something to the aesthetic of it, like the set, the aesthetic of it, everything is just really beautiful and stands out, even though it is in black and white. It just pops. Even the picture of Laura that, that's hanging on the wall, in every scene, even if it's like in the back corner, it catches your eye. Like they have it set up so that like even if you're in the bedroom and she's in the this painting's in the other room, for some reason your focus, it can even be like the top left 1-inch corner of your screen. You're still looking at this painting. Like it's just so interesting how they're able to sort of like bring that in. It's so good. And then the last thing I wanted to say about it was the score. And so I do want to throw this to you too, Zev, but I think that this is a movie, like the first movie that I've ever seen that I realized I could have probably watched this movie on mute, or like not on mute, but watched this movie without dialogue and almost had the same experience, because I was feeling what was happening in the movie and expecting and anticipating what was going to happen and feeling like, afraid, happy, laughing, scared. Not so much based on the dialogue and so much more based on the music that was behind it. So like, I was like, somebody's coming. My mom's like, I know. And then it was like 10 seconds later, it was like door opens, or whatever, somebody comes in. And I thought how powerful this was, like on the score side to like, and how, I don't know, it was just wild how it did that. It's the first thing that I've realized, like how powerful that was in the storytelling itself for the music. So again, this is a 5-star movie for me. I absolutely adored it. My mom adored it. My parents, or my mom and, my dad and my sister were in the front seat, but they were like making us listen. Zev's fist pumping. He's excited that he's gotten a good one in here. They loved it too. Like just all around a movie that I would recommend every single person should see. So Zev, I'm going to throw it to you. What was your impetus for picking? Like you picked this one. Was there a reason why? Does my description of it resonate with you? What do you think about this movie?
Back when I was on the Sundance Grand Prize tier for our Patreons, before that tier was discontinued, my idea for you and Rob was to get you guys to watch more Golden Age cinema in black and white. So, and I think this was the second Gene Tierney movie that I picked for you guys. The first being Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Yep.
And so, so I think if Robin Hood is like my ultimate perfect favorite, Adventures of Robin Hood is like my favorite, like the perfect movie in color. This would be one of the movies that I would argue that like every movie should be in black and white, because Laura is, one of my, it's one of my 20 or so favorite movies of all time. I've seen it almost a dozen times. I want to go back to something that you said, that you could watch this movie like with almost no dialogue. I see where you're coming from, but then we would lose all of the acerbic wit from Waldo Lydecker, and for me, that's just one of the great pleasures of the movie. Like if he and George Sanders from All About Eve ever had like a bitch off there, we
would not have survived as a civilization.
No. But I think it would have been worth it as the world's end. So I agree with everything that you say here. The cast is wonderful, and the music, obviously. This is notable for being a movie that has a score that really only has one theme, and every sort of cue is based around this one haunting theme by David Raxon. A little bit of history on David Raxon. So he was around, like, he died, I think, in 2004, but one of his first assignments was working with Charlie Chaplin, on the movie Modern Times. Chaplin, of course, essentially was credited as the composer, but he would, I think Raxon, one of his assignments was to transcribe the tunes that Chaplin was humming to him, because Chaplin couldn't read music. So that was Raxon's assignment, to transcribe and arrange it. And Alfred Newman, who, is one of the granddaddies of film music, would see what Raxon was doing with Chaplin's tunes, and when Newman became the head of 20th Century Fox, Raxon was one of his proteges. And I think initially, actually, the movie Laura was offered first to Bernard Herrmann. Herrmann, on the strength of Jane Eyre, his wonderful score for the Orson Welles Jane Eyre, he was offered Laura, and he declined, saying Laura wouldn't listen to Herrmann; she'd listen to Debussy. Which make that of what you will, but it went to David Raxon, and Raxon and Herrmann were good friends, and I think and Raxon taught for many years at USC, and I think whenever he wanted to needle Herrmann, I was reading this in the Herrmann biography, he's Hitchcock, who of course Herrmann worked with for years and years, said whenever he wanted to needle Benny, he would say, "Why don't you write me a theme like Laura?" Just, you know. so that was just like what are wonderful tidbits I read about their relationship. But Raxon, this score is sort of more in the wave of composers who almost rebelled against the I don't want to say rebelled, but almost it was a different style from the Franz Waxmans and the Max Steiners and the Korngolds. It did draw more from Debussy in a very, very big way, as did Herrmann on his early film scores. And I think the ways that music is used in the film, because it's used in a variety of ways. It's used obviously as underscore. It's used in the cafe in a very wonderful arrangement for piano and violin. It's used on the phonographs as party music. So it just keeps this theme running and running. And I think it just helps us, you know, I think it's a movie where you're not even so much, you have to sort of be aware of it in a certain way. But like after a while, it just like sinks its teeth into you. I think it really does. It's a very, very infectious theme. It was recorded hundreds of times. I think Johnny Mercer ended up putting lyrics to it. Point became a very, very popular jazz standard, and it's currently on top of the in the top 5 of AFI's greatest film scores. It's number 4. Oh no! Excuse me. It's not listed first in their top 10. It sits at number 4. Of their greatest mystery movies. So,
all right.
So yeah, they're, you know, this is a very, I think it's a very easy movie to say, oh, I love the music from this, but with good reason, because the music is wonderful.
It's so good.
It's completely wonderful. And I mean, other than just the theme itself, I just love its use as atmosphere. Like you mentioned this one scene where McPherson is by himself in the apartment, and it's late at night, and I think Clifton Webb comes back to collect his possessions, his vase, his clock, and something else. And he says, and when McPherson says no, he says, "You better be careful. I don't think we've ever had a patient. I don't think a psychiatric ward ever had a patient that fell in love with a corpse." And so musically, a lot of that sequence is still using the theme, but it's a very, very weird and warped version of that theme. And it's just what Raxon can do with that theme is just magical.
Could not possibly agree more. I am going to watch it again. I'm thrilled by it. So thank you for finally giving me, not you in particular, but in general, to get a movie like this to watch was quite the delight. Thank you guys for getting together to talk today. Zev, I did want to throw it to you for a quick second. I know you have work that you do obviously in music and that you do a lot of creation. Where is the best place for people to find your music and to listen to it?
So I have a website. It's just zevburrowsmusic.com. I post a lot of my work there, a lot of the short films I've done, some of the features that I've worked on. Most recently, I just contributed lyrics for an end credit song for a documentary called Unconditional, which is directed by an MSNBC news anchor, Richard Louie. And it's the second documentary I've worked on with him. The first being a 2020 movie called Sky Blossom, where I did a lot of additional music and orchestrated quite a bit of music. And it's I think the movie just premiered a couple of weeks ago. I don't know when it's coming to streaming, but we'll see. But I also regularly do a lot of production music. That's kind of been my big thing, is just music for production music libraries that just can get my music into television and advertising easily. And so, I'll see music show up on like ABC 2020 or Dateline NBC, and so
that's
that's
just
fun.
I love it. I love it.
It's a lot of fun, and just sometimes I'll see placements of tracks and I'll examine them. I'll go, they use that for that? And it's just it's a lot of fun. And then I do music for plays. I just did a score for a production of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which ran in Brooklyn for a couple of weeks. That was a lot of fun. It was actually my second time doing the play. So I wrote two scores for the same, not the same production, but essentially the same show. And then I also do musical theater. So I got a musical in the works right now, which I can't really talk that much about, but we'll see.
All right. Well, then head out to his site and check it out. It's so good. I've listened to so many snippets that you put out there, and it's awesome. It can link you out to, like you said, some of the ads that it's on, and it's really, really good stuff. So we're so impressed, and again, so glad that you joined us, and thank you again for the pick. In closing, I want to thank everybody for listening. You can head out to our social media page, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where we're posting occasionally alternate ending for all of our other content there as well, reviews, podcasts, and more. And don't forget to sign up for Patreon. You also could pick an amazing movie just like Laura for us to check out.
But do keep in mind the bar has now been raised, so Carrie will not love you as much as she loves Zev.
I only accept 5-star movies going forward. Exactly. It's all downhill from here, but we always appreciate that. So we'll catch you next week.